you see Rick throw away those crystals, same pink protrusions.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, I think what it was is in
Rick
the end of...
hang on. I'm tying it all together.
Okay.
So Rick brought those parasites in. The reason that Krampus Michael is still alive is because that Rick and that Morty and Mr. Poopy Butthole, who's in that episode, are not C-137 Rick and Morty.
It's a different Rick that we're following.
Because Mr. Poopy Butthole's been there from the beginning. He's even in the trailer.
The opening credits. Scenes.
But our Rick and Morty don't have Mr. Poopy Butthole. And the other thing, the one that ties it all together is right at the end, when they go to get Jerry, they get mixed up, the tickets.
The tickets, yeah, because...
Our Rick and Morty don't have their ticket, or the other way around.
Okay, so basically at the beginning of the episode of Morty Night Run, the one with Krampopoulos Michael, when they go to drop off Jerry, they get a ticket, and it's actually number 5126 is what it says on there. And... at the end of the, we go through the whole episode and stuff like that, and at the very end of the episode, they end up saying that the Jerrys are mixed up from another Rick. And what ends up happening is the ones that we haven't even been following says, do you have 5126?
That was it, yep.
And then that's why people, or the theories start coming together that...
So Rick and Morty...
The ones that we followed throughout that entire episode and two later are not C-137. So... C-137 Krampus Michael is still alive and kicking.
Yep.
Which I would love to fucking see him again because he is so awesome.
So what, C-137 and his Morty were just at...
Blitzen. They even said it.
They're at Blitzen. And
it
was funny because when they ended up doing the second... what was it? The second one with a bunch of the bits, the TV episode. I forget what that episode's called.
Oh yeah,
the sequel to Rick's D Minutes.
It's the interdimensional cable part 2.
Yeah, so they actually have a commercial of Blitz and Chits that Rick is able to in.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, when they're in the hospital in the intergalactic, hospital. They're sitting there flipping through the channels, and a commercial of Blitz and Chits comes on, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm in the commercial."
Do you think they'll do another episode?
If Mr. Poopy Butthole ever shows up again, that's our indication that's not C-137 Rick and Morty. That's according to this theory.
They've actually
about another interdimensional cable episode. You think?
Oh yeah, they.
Well, I don't.
You don't want to.
Like you didn't want to do it because it's.
I didn't find either of them that funny. Honestly, they just cool. Some of it was really good, but then. Some of it just dragged on, like the two brothers, and it just kept going and going. And
or else the too many or the fake doors.
Oh my god!
Where he's stuck in traffic and makes a sandwich.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's kind of. But you can't rewatch those episodes.
No,
I don't. Those ones don't have as much.
It's all improv, is why
it doesn't have as much rewatchability.
It's got an improvisational feel to it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I personally don't like the. I just don't. I just think it gets annoying.
I kind of like it. I mean, there's some parts that...
Everything else going on in the episode's fine. Like, Jerry not want to give up his penis, or Beth and Jerry's in the first one, their potential lives that they squandered by having Summer. That was great.
Do you think... So, expanding on your theory of not following C-137, do you think that maybe we jump back and forth between two different sets? And the only reason I say that is because it's something that, knowing Dan Harmon... and Justin Roiland, he would slip something like this in that it seems like Beth and Jerry are either doing really well or their relationship is going to hell, and they repair it, and they're going to hell almost in every other episode. So maybe we're jumping back and forth.
So we know for sure that our main Rick and Morty are C-137 because the dead body's buried in the backyard, and it comes up. I don't know. I guess they could, but I feel like there's hints throughout of interconnecting things that happen, like season 1 to 2 are linked by the season finale and the season premiere.
Right, so maybe like the big plot episodes that we see.
But our side adventures.
But the side adventures might be following a different Rick and Morty.
That could be, yeah.
So basically any that have Bird Person...
Well, Phoenix Person now.
Phoenix Person.
Would probably be in C1. So, okay, what... Alright, if we're going to fall in this rabbit hole, what would be some indicators that we're definitely watching C-137?
They say it.
Okay.
Yeah, they say it.
It's the Rick hates the Council of Ricks because we never
plot points.
Big plot points.
That the episodes that actually tie back, like the season 3 premiere where he's actually in prison. So that being the season 2 finale, then when they are on the other planets. Big feel like big plot points are main Rick and Morty, but like the weird shit that happens, because it seems like all these strange things happen within the world, and people are so nonplussed about them.
So
like
when we say the giant heads, we say that's a different...
That might be a different Rick and Morty.
Yeah, it could be. Because it's funny that you guys mentioned that, because if you think about it, after that episode, you think that it's a full-blown religion. There would be some kind of traces of that afterwards, and there's nothing there.
They get these big wipes, like I'm sure, I'm almost positive we'll see... And at some point in season 3, nobody remembers or cares about all of the aliens.
I don't know, because remember the math teacher there was leading an underground resistance. The bugs shall not rule the surface world.
I think he grows up in the impending chaos.
Coming out from the sewers and everything else.
He waited until the coast was clear and just like, and started shooting off his machine gun. So like I said, I think that's something. I'll have to rewatch them. And I've watched them a lot. And it always seems like every time you watch the first
pick up something new. Something you didn't. You want to hear something? I'm an idiot for it. The first time I watched the whole season through, I didn't realize that there was a post-credit scene in every single episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because I Hulu'd them, so one got over, I just started the next one. And then I happened to be watching them, and I fell asleep and woke up as the credits were ending on one of the very last episodes, and that popped up, and I was like, huh.
Well, it's like Coach Ferratu. There's like vampires in your world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nobody.
No.
The
Tiny Rick episode.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Is things like that. All these crazy things are happening in their world, and it seems like we hit the reset button every time we start a new episode. That's self-contained adventures. But I've seen Harmon's work before, like I said, in Community, and he's kept a long-run theme. So it wouldn't surprise me if he did another interdimensional cable, though. Because in the end of the Community, I would say the first 3 seasons and the 5th season, they did a paintball-themed episode.
Right.
So he's known to keep a joke ongoing like that and just insert it in the season. So I know you're not a big fan of the first 2.
Well, it's
stuff because there'll probably be another one.
That's also kind of like Dog World. He kind of, he's been working on that for a separate show for so long, and then eventually when the dogs took over
did you know that?
The world.
That was one of his original cartoon ideas.
Yeah, it was Dog World.
An entire show about a world of dogs.
The butts.
The butts show up a lot too.
No, the butt. That could be an indication that we're following C-137.
That's true.
Yeah. Because when in the season 3 premiere, Morty jumps into that world.
Yeah.
So we know that they're following him. So we'll have to look back when they first. I think it was a season 1 premiere when they're hopping through dimensions.
And they see the butts, and then they have the party. They end up in the butts.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's Aberdolf Linkler. Aberdolf Linkler's in that one, and then
at one point they vacation and they have pictures.
Yeah, family vacation.
Yes, so that I think is a good indication we're following C-137 if they're flipping back and forth.
I don't think anybody's ever talked about this. We may have just come up with our own.
How we know we're following C-137?
Yeah.
It's almost like an anchoring theory.
Mr. Poopy Butthole. You know what I mean? He talks about butts a lot. It wouldn't surprise me if at the end of this, like season 5, Rick's origin story involves a butt somehow.
Or season 9.
Yeah, it's got 9 seasons. 9 seasons, Morty. The next one that I'd like to talk about is why Rick is so smart, and this goes all the way back to the pilot.
And this kind of ties into if Rick is Morty or Morty is Rick, but we're not going to get into that.
Off of it, but yeah, let's lay that one.
Let's try to simplify this for right now.
So basically, the pilot episode, spoilers by the way for everything we've talked about, and if you didn't realize that, then go fuck yourself. But I mean, at this point, you got to know. In the pilot, Rick wakes up Morty. They go on this adventure to get the mega seeds or super seeds.
I think it's mega seeds from a super tree. Mega seeds from a super tree.
He has to have Morty shove them way up his butt.
Way up your butt, Morty.
Because he can't. He's done it too many times.
Wait the butts, I told you.
And
they would just fall right out.
And at the end, Morty is super smart because of the seeds dissolving in his anus. And then he collapses and
convulses for a solid 14 hours straight.
48 hours.
48.
For, yeah. So the interesting thing about it is you notice at the end a little dribble of spit comes out of Morty's mouth
from the super seeds,
just like what Rick has always got. So then, if you build upon that, whenever Rick is actually drinking alcohol, because he always has his flask, he always has the flask, he's always drinking out of it. So we assume he's always drunk, and that's what the dribble is. But they make it a point every time he drinks actual alcohol. There's 3 X's on the bottle, the can,
whatever. Yeah,
but there is nothing on that flask.
And there is a difference between when he is legitimately drunk versus when he's drinking out of the flask.
Yeah,
you can tell. Yeah, he acts differently.
And
so the theory is. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it always seems like he always has his big like breakthrough idea after
taking a sip.
Yeah.
The theory is he originally was shoving these things way up his butt, and that made him smart. But his anus is so
it lost traction.
Yeah, it's so the elasticity's gone. He can't do it. So he figured out a way to turn the seeds into a liquid, and he drinks them to enhance his intelligence. Now, the theory says that he's already smart, but the way he can become the smartest being alive is those seeds that he drinks.
And they're illegal as well.
And they're illegal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And normally it wouldn't be a problem because he can just zip in and out with his portal gun. He's the only one that has a portal gun. We know that because
but previously,
in season 3,
they
that's what they were interrogating him for, is the portal gun.
But previously in the premiere or the season 1 premiere episode, he has to, or Morty ends up breaking his legs because he didn't turn on the boots, and Rick has to go over to this.
All the energy in his portal gun.
Yeah, he used all the energy, and then they had to actually go through customs, and then that's how this whole thing began.
So Rick might not. He's probably smart, but according to this theory, he's not as intelligent as he is by nature, naturally.
Well, I mean, in order to get to the seeds, he must have been intelligent enough to stumble upon the portal gun, to make the portal gun.
Well, where does the portal gun start? Which Rick is the original Rick with the portal gun? Now you're just.
That's, like I said,
we're just looping
at definition in this series. But I agree. Just because, and we believe that the season 3 premiere was a fabricated origin story. That's what he leads us to believe. So we operate on the assumption that the truth is forthcoming. But when he initially creates the portal gun, you'll notice, he doesn't have any drool. Yeah. It's just regular Rick. He doesn't act the way that he does. And it might be, they say, because it's something traumatic or whatever. But yeah, that's a good point. Is he doesn't have his flask. He's not drinking it yet. So.
That actually kind of brings me to another one. Why do you think Rick is so depressed all the time?
Because he knows he's a cartoon character.
He has to, doesn't he?
This theory is really interesting. There's like 5 or 6 videos on YouTube about this one.
And they're all different.
And so the one that I really like talked about how Rick knows that in order for him to survive, Rick he knows he has to keep the series going, so he has to do interesting things. That's why the best adventures are only when we're watching, because he knows when we're watching. Mm-hmm. And it's also why there's certain episodes where, for instance, when they're being chased in the one with the evil Rick, I can't remember what the episode title is.
Okay.
They go through those dimensions and they end up in the one where people are chairs.
Oh, yeah.
And they end up escaping, and it cuts from their escape to them in the ship. And Rick says to Morty, "Boy, it was a good thing that those chair people had the same clothes as us." And Morty says to him,
"You don't have to keep repeating it.
Keep repeating yourself." It's because Rick doesn't know exactly when the commercials cut or end. So if he has a point to the story, he will repeat it over and over again until
they actually pick it up in the show.
He kind of notices that somebody's picked it up.
And that's also kind of why you see him breaking the fourth wall all the time.
He has
catchphrases. I mean, wubba lubba dub dub, really.
No, that's true. Yeah, so that's the end of the season.
Or he will do things. You'll notice he will do things to push the story forward himself. Like, just it doesn't make sense why he does something, but it's just to push the story forward. But it would make sense if he knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, here's an interesting fact about it. Mr. Poopy Butthole, in that universe, he is actually a TV show character because Mr. Poopy Butthole in the end credits is watching the show. And then he's actually saying all this stuff like, well, we'll see you for season 3 in like a year and a half, 2 years, and all that. So
time travel, interdimensional travel. Are we a cartoon? Aren't we a cartoon? Is Morty Rick?
So
is this the Matrix?
Another layer to this one is that Rick is so Morty, if you notice, is getting more and more cynical as the show goes on, and more intelligent.
Right.
He picks up on things. He understands things. He can keep up with Rick a little better. Rick is actually, the part of this theory is he's trying to stop Morty from realizing that it's a cartoon because he doesn't want Morty to be as depressed and in pain as he is.
Mm-hmm.
And the far-reaching implication of this is that the end of the series will be when Morty realizes it, and he will end the series to put Rick out of his misery.
It's almost like a